They're back.
Ever since the world began, one thing was all too true. There was a cancer in the land that wants to bury me and you. They grabbed all the wealth and bought themselves a throne and cracked an evil whip like the world has never known. But the centuries passed and the people said no more, and liberty at last came to even up the score. An idea grew and its time had finally come. Liberty and justice had its day in the sun. We got the solutions for problems we create. We'll take the confusions and wipe them off your plate. You'd never believe that, you couldn't conceive that. From presidents down to clerks, just one of the perks. We get to control you, 'cause this is how the game works. One fine day in a new and fertile land, a group of patriots were brave enough to take a stand. They put forth an idea that raised us to new heights, that the country serves man and man has got his rights. Now 200 years have passed and this freedom served them well, but the cancer never left. They devised a plan from hell, just like a game of dominoes falling to the ground. The only way to win, bring America down. We got the solutions for problems we create. We'll take the confusions and wipe them off your plate. You'd never believe that, you couldn't conceive that. From presidents down to clerks, just one of the perks. We get to control you, 'cause this is how the game works. Save us from a world that's torn apart. We'll give you all our money, we'll give to you our hearts. If liberty and freedom is the price we have to pay, it's worth it just to see our children live another day. So save us, save us. You got to save us, save us. Lesson 1, to make a free people willing to obey and happily give all their rights away. You've got to convince them that they're under attack, killing thousands of your own and blame it on a maniac. They'll beg you to save them, their rights you can waive them, convince them all their danger lurks. Just one of those perks. They get to control you, 'cause this is how the game works. Save us from a world that's torn apart. We'll give you all our money, we'll give to you our hearts. If liberty and freedom is the price we have to pay, it's worth it just to see our children live another day. So save us,
listening to Uncle Neal's Neighborhood, episode number 8. I'm your host, Neal Fox, a.k.a. Uncle Neal. This is the home for all things avuncular. That song you just heard is called How the Game Works. It was originally written right after 9/11, and it's from my full-length documentary called The Conspiracy Project, which you can see on youtube.com/Neal Fox or Rumble/Neal Fox. And it's all about how the elites get to control the regular guys like you and me through fear, intimidation, lies, trickery. Basically, this song is about what's called a false flag. And right now, you probably know what a false flag is, but for those who don't, let me give a quick explanation and how we could defeat a false flag. Just taking something off of the interweb. A false flag operation. The term false flag refers to a covert operation usually orchestrated by a government. The operations are designed to appear as if they were carried out by another group or country and are generally used to set a pre-context for war. So if the generals in, say, country A want to go to war with country B, but the citizens of country A don't want to go to war, so the generals of country A will pretend to be from country B and attack country A, killing as many people as they can just to rile up the citizens of country A, and everybody will be screaming for revenge. And then the generals will be very, very happy and they'll have their war. Of course, the newspapers are quick to say that anyone believing in false flags is a conspiracy theorist, but many of the conspiracy theories turned out to be conspiracy truths. One such conspiracy theory that turned out to be true was the Gulf of Tonkin incident. Johnson and McNamara wanted to get the U.S. into war with North Vietnam, and they falsely claimed that the USS Maddox was torpedoed twice by the North Vietnamese. And that led the Congress to pass a resolution almost unanimously allowing the federal government to take all necessary measures to protect the USS forces in Vietnam. So how do you take the power out of false flag operations? It is so simple. Knowledge. Once the general public knows what a false flag is, they're not so quick to go to war. The next time the corporate news is saying XYZ happened, well, instead of people just getting hopping mad and saying, gotta get revenge, they actually stop and think about it. This whole trucker convoy, which is a peaceful protest, has made many people realize the exact nature of Justin Trudeau's character. He's called for the use of emergency powers, which is basically martial law, to be used against peaceful protesters who want nothing more than the right to live their lives as they see fit, perfectly legal. This might explain a little bit about where Justin gets his philosophy of life from.
There's a level of admiration I actually have for China because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime and say we need to go green as fastest. We need to start investing in solar.
As of this recording, the police is starting to crack down and arrest truckers. And there's a tweet from the Ottawa government saying that if you get arrested and you can't take care of your dog, in 8 days they'll grab that dog and bye-bye puppy. So they're beyond the point of even caring how they look to the general public anymore. And there have been reports of possible false flags being used against the truckers. Here's a clip from the Reese report.
The federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act to supplement provincial and territorial capacity to address the blockades and occupations.
Justin Trudeau has enacted the Emergency Powers Act against all who protest his dictates, including seizing people's bank accounts. Trudeau won't allow these Canadian citizens to have a life in their own country, nor will he allow them to leave. These are Canadian families celebrating together peacefully as they honorably protest their government. It is now evident that Trudeau is capable of anything. Last Sunday at around 3 a.m., more than 2,000 firearms were stolen from a shipping lot in Peterborough, Ontario. a former sniper for the RCMP, has announced that multiple sources have warned that Trudeau's government could be planting weapons in Ottawa to deceptively frame the Freedom Convoy as violent and use it as a false pretext for violently ending the historic peaceful protests.
Big tech and the corporate news media are working around the clock to make sure we don't hear the whole story. Here's the YouTube CEO calling for the U.S. government to end the First Amendment.
Well, first of all, I'll say that we work around the globe, and you're right. Certainly, there are many different laws in many different jurisdictions, and we enforce the laws of the various jurisdictions around speech or what's considered safe or not safe. That actually hasn't been the controversial part. What has been the controversial part has been when there is content that would be deemed as harmful, but yet is not illegal. So an example of that, for example, would be COVID. I'm not aware of there being laws by governments saying around COVID in terms of not being able to debate the efficacy of masks or where the virus came from or the right treatment or proposal, but yet there was a lot of pressure and concern about us distributing misinformation that went against what was considered the standard and accepted medical knowledge. Our recommendation, if governments want to have more control over online speech, is to pass laws to have that be very cleanly and clearly defined such that we can implement it.
Did you catch that? She's asking the U.S. government to pass laws so that YouTube could legally block free speech. And don't think for a minute the Let's Go Brandon White House wouldn't consider doing that. And as we speak, the U.S. Freedom Convoy is being formed. It's going to go from California all the way across the U.S. to Washington, D.C., right in the backyard of Let's Go Brandon. Can't wait. That's going to be fun. All right, let's take a quick break. All right, this show is brought to you by me. My new album, Unhinged, is wonderful, if I say so myself. And a lot of critics are saying the same thing. It's giving me a big head. Could hardly get out the door. If you want to hear it or stream it or buy it or, take it to bed with you, just head over to my website, therealnealfox.com. That's NEALFOX, not NEIL. Or you can go to any of the great digital outlets like Spotify and Apple Music and follow me, and you'll hear many, many, many of my albums, including Unhinged. By the way, this album was inspired by the events of 2020. The riots, the CRT, Antifa, BLM, all that good stuff. Got plenty of songs there. And there are some hopeful songs too, so it's not all, we're doomed! No, it'll leave you feeling good. Go out and check it out. Let's talk about equality versus equity. Equality simply means people should be treated the same, equally. The laws that apply to me are the same laws that should apply to Hillary Clinton. We should all be treated equally and fairly under the law. But clearly, people are not created equal. A 5-foot guy wouldn't be much of a basketball player. But nonetheless, we should all have the same basic human rights. So how does equality differ from equity? They sound pretty similar. It's kind of tricky. And don't think that isn't intentional. Equity means the outcomes have to be equal. You see, some people just don't have the same basic starting elements as other people. Somebody was born into a rich family, somebody else might be tall, somebody else might be black, somebody be white. It doesn't matter. They're all supposed to come out equal in the end. The argument makes it sound so fair and loving and kind. But in effect, it turns out to be the exact opposite. So how does this equity work in effect in real life? Well, that 5-foot gentleman who wants to be a basketball player, he would be allowed to be on the team, even if somebody who was 6.5 foot was better than him. They would just make special rules for the 5-foot guys, so everything would come out equal in the end. Everyone gets a trophy. Nobody left behind. And of course, if everybody gets a trophy, if there are no losers, what's the point of playing the game? A game is just not worth playing if you can't win and lose. There's no excitement. There's no reason to be in the game. And people will soon lose interest in watching the game because who cares? Doesn't matter who wins. Everybody wins. Colleges and businesses start offering different sets of rules for entry. They make it harder or easier depending on, say, the color of your skin or your nationality. This is actually a kind of slap in the face to darker-skinned people. It's presupposing that if you have a darker skin or you come from a poor family, your skill level is not as high as somebody who, say, is Asian or white. Again, it sounds so humane, but it actually doesn't benefit anybody in the long run. People know they've been let in under easier circumstances than other people. So what actually happens when people are chosen for something other than their actual abilities? Well, for one, airplanes start falling out of the sky. Doctors start having fewer and fewer successes and kill more and more people. Cars aren't made as good as they should be, so there are more accidents and more repairs, and it costs more money. Every aspect of society goes downhill. So what are you saying, Uncle Neal? Are you saying we should just ignore those with less opportunity? Ignore the people who were born into the wrong circumstances or into the wrong bodies? No, I'm not saying that at all. We do have to have compassion for our fellow man and lift him up whenever we can. What I'm saying is this. Equity does not lift anybody up. It brings everybody down. We all become equal, equally stupid and equally poor. So what do? Do we do away with food stamps and welfare and programs to help students who didn't have the same educational background as others? Well, let me ask you this. A guy breaks his leg and goes to the doctor. The doctor puts a cast on his leg, tells him to walk around with crutches for a few weeks, then comes back, and if he's a good doctor, he tries to get the person off of the crutches and out of the cast as soon as possible. Why? Because the longer he's on crutches and in a cast, the weaker his legs are going to become until he becomes permanently disabled. So if you're sincere about wanting to help people who have less opportunity than you should give them a hand up. Yeah, I have no problem with some welfare and food stamps and special programs, but you should try to get them off of those programs as soon as possible. Otherwise, you've got a slave, and you've got a slave for life. You know, life is not fair. That's just the way it is. It's a tough universe. And all these colleges that are making safe spaces and pampering to kids who just can't handle words, they're not making it easier for these kids. These kids are going to be very weak by the time they get out of college, and the universe is going to smack them in the face. All right, enough about that. A few years back, I was wondering where all the heroes were. So I wrote a song about it. Like to hear it? Here it goes.
Is anybody home? Is anybody crying for the late, great hero? Will there ever be another big enough and strong enough and tough enough? Is anybody home? Is anybody here? Will anybody speak up for the less than zero? He was good enough to be there when we needed him. We greeted him with open arms. Is anybody here? Is there anybody old enough who can recall a time when justice had some meaning, when the code of honor was the greatest truth, and every heart lived for one and all. Is anybody right? Is anybody fighting for the rights of good men? Is there any one of you that will be big enough this isn't good enough. We need to find a hero within us all. Is anybody there? Does anybody care about a thing like freedom? It's too easy just to crucify the best of us and glorify the rest of us. Is anybody home? Is anybody crying for the late great hero? Will there ever be another big enough and strong enough and tough enough? Is anybody home? Is anybody home? Is anybody home? Is anybody home? Is anybody home?
I no longer worry about where all the heroes are. They're us. And that wraps it up for another episode of Uncle Neal's Neighborhood, home for all things avuncular. And if you'd like to help me out, keep me doing what I'm doing, rather than see me greeting you at Walmart's, you could follow me on Spotify and YouTube and Rumble and probably Trump's New Truth Social coming up pretty soon. And you could purchase some merch at therealnealfox.com, which is my main website. And I'd love for you to become a patron if you like what I'm doing. It doesn't cost much at all. Just go over to patreon.com/Neal Fox and share and share and share. That's the best thing you could do for me right now, is share this podcast, share my music, share my videos. And just remember, if you're not feeling so good, you're a little down, a little depressed, Bunky, get out there and look for somebody who might need a little help. It's the best way you can help yourself. Bye-bye for now. Love you guys. See you next time.